To the Profitable Home Services podcast. I'm so glad you chose to join us. Today, we're going to be talking to Evan Hoffman and Thaddeus Tondu, who I'm saying that right?
Thaddeus Tondu.
Okay, from the On Purpose Media Group. And they have some amazing information to share with us that's going to help you with your marketing challenges and start giving you some higher ROIs on the marketing spend that you're doing. So welcome, Evan. Welcome, Thaddeus. I'm so glad you guys could join me on the show today. And I'm looking forward to the gold nuggets you're going to share with our listeners.
Thanks for having us on, Diana. Appreciate it.
Looking forward to it. Sorry, I had some audio technical difficulties. I missed half of what you said because my speakers cut out on me. So the joys of technology.
Gotta love it when it works,
right?
And we put up with it when it doesn't.
We're here now.
Okay. Because we can just go with the flow, make this thing work.
Mm-hmm.
So I know in the past I've talked with you guys and that you work a lot with HVAC businesses. In fact, I even went on your site and downloaded your checklist. So now you think I'm an HVAC business.
I saw that, but although the internet marketing checklist, there's a lot of things that I think any business can really pull out of that document, not necessarily an HVAC or a home service business for that matter. And so there's a lot of similarities across the board.
And I thought that was amazing that you had such great information right on pretty much the homepage of your site. So many people hide it, and you have to go in quite a ways to find anything that's really actionable that you can take and use. So just as a newbie on your site, thank you.
You're welcome. Consumer experience.
And a great lesson there
journey, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, a great lesson for home service business owners, right? Do you answer a customer's questions immediately when they enter your site, or are you making them dig around for it? Because if they can't find what it is that they're looking for, they're going to bounce and they're going to go find a resource that does provide the answer.
Mm-hmm.
About how long do they stick on a site before they start moving? You have statistics on that?
Well, typically if a site is not loading fast, so for every 10th of a second over 2 seconds, your bounce rate increases by 7%.
I don't think that's maybe, I don't know. I just know that a consumer wants a site to load in 2 seconds or less. And then every second over that, it just reduces your bounce rate. Google says your site should load in 3 seconds or less, but consumers are impatient.
I know I've hit
especially on mobile devices.
Yep.
Right. Yes.
Yep.
I know for myself, I've hit lots of sites where it just sits there and spins and spins and spins and spins. And you just move on. It's like, yeah, I didn't need it that badly.
Yeah, and the other part too is depending on what your website looks like, and I don't really have a number on this specifically. It's kind of like the adage of when you meet somebody in person, you have 3 to 5 seconds to make your first impression, and after that, your first impression is done. Right? They've now formed a basis on you and how you interacted with them. Think about that on your website. If you land on a website and you go there, well, traditionally, using that logic, 3 to 5 seconds for someone to make an impression on the site. So, and part of that is load time. And so now you've got to be able to capture that person right then and there, the instant that they're on their site, to make sure and understand, are you a good business or not? Do I want to do business with this person or not?
So no pressure, right?
No pressure. No pressure. Whoever decided to do website agencies,
Well, I know as I'm working with home service businesses, I see them spending tons and tons of money on marketing. And when I start digging into the numbers with them and we start looking at all their different marketing sources or their different channels that they're spending money on, and I start asking them, well, what kind of a return are you getting? Are you getting new customers? Are you advancing yourself? Are you building your network? Are you doing any of this stuff? And they look at me and go, I don't know. My software says I'm getting so many clicks or leads or whatever, but is it translating into dollars? And how can we measure that, or how can we even calculate if it's really transferring into dollars?
Oh, man, that's a can of worms question. Evan and I are both like, uh-oh.
Sorry.
Well, no, because it's more difficult than just saying, is my marketing working? Right. So first step is our operations on point? Are we answering the phone correctly? Are we answering the phone in a timely fashion? For form fills that come in, are we responding to those in a timely fashion? Web chats that come in, are we responding to those in a timely fashion? If we're paying for leads, running any kind of paid lead platform, Home Advisor, Yelp, Angie's List, Google Ads, Facebook ads, if we're paying for those leads, are we getting back to them right away? Because and I can't remember the exact numbers on this either, but I'm pretty sure it's if you the amount of uh, the reduction of the booking rate is 90% if you do not respond to them within the first 24 hours,
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
right? And so your ability to actually get someone on your job board goes down dramatically if you're not responding quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a huge thing on the operational side before you start putting money into Google Ads or LSA or any of these things that are really, really expensive for your business if you don't have your operations dialed in correctly first.
So do you have some general parameters on what should be standards or expectations as far as having those operations dialed in?
Well,
Well,
I can tell you one of our best customers answers their phone 98% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Like a live
So,
person answers, not hitting voicemail. Like they
Okay.
actually,
yes,
yes.
right.
That was,
Go ahead.
does it make a difference if they're using an answering service type of a piece of something versus a real live person that really picks up the phone?
Mm-hmm. Well, and you think like, so I know the big trend is AI right now and having an AI person answer the phone. And I'm actually part of a couple different groups and chats, and one of them we're talking about this AI and leveraging technology. And I think there's so many people are now jumping into this part where they're starting to use the AI technology to answer the phone. A differentiating factor in the future is going to be a human answering the phone, not an AI answering the phone. And if you can actually do that, now you're going to have this. I mean, consumers are still going to be okay with AI, but now you can differentiate factor yourself by having a human answer the phone. The other part too is an answering service. And so some people might say, okay, well, a live person that's going to be an answering service that's going to answer my calls for me. Well, if they're not integrated into your business with your scripts and knowing what to say to be able to book onto your job board and be able to have conversations, to be able to move things around, to be able to put things onto a board, if it's an emergency call, for example, and you have an opportunity to push a maintenance call a little ways out, well, would you want to take the emergency opportunity and a human into your business is going to be able to do that greater than an answering service can. And sometimes answering services will just take the number and say, yeah, we'll have somebody call back, especially like overnight, right? They'll call. But you think about that. I mean, if it's Canada and it's cold, or if it's Florida and it's hot, do you necessarily, I mean, Canada is a little bit different. I mean, if it's cold, or even like the northern US, wherever it's cold out, they might not wait till the morning for somebody to come out.
And then you've lost that call and you've lost that
Yeah.
sale.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Now, I'm not saying I'm not advocating. Now, some people don't want 24/7 operations, and that's fine. That's your choice.
Mm-hmm. Seems like in today's world, the thought of somebody handwriting and actually mailing you a letter would be almost earth-shattering, just because we've gotten to the point that everything's so electronic
Mm-hmm.
and we
Well, and
respond
that's
through email.
a great way to stand out as a company when you're talking about customer service, leaving behind a handwritten note after you run the call. Thank you for trusting us in your home. Thank you for calling us. Thank you for taking the time to work with us. You know, we look forward to serving you for years in the future. You relieve that in a handwritten thank you card. You can have your technicians do it before they even leave the house,
Mhm.
or have it mailed out. Worst case scenario, it's a great way to stand out.
Mm-hmm. But here's the other part to go back to the original thing about ROI is that's a form of marketing. Can
Mm-hmm.
you gauge an ROI from that? Well, no, because that's internal return customer marketing, right?
Mhm.
The other part is if you look at, and I'm gonna take this offline from the off or the online world of the Google ads, the Facebook ads, the SEO. If you do a billboard, well, can you get an ROI from a billboard? No. Can you get an ROI from your van wraps driving down the street? No. Can you get it from radio? No. That's branding place, but it helps with your online presence. Now, I'm not advocating everybody goes and does radio and TV and billboards because it's talking expensive to be able to do it the right way. You have to have the infrastructure in place for it. But now you can't track your ROI on that effectively. But it also enhances the online ROI and makes it look better.
So how can you tell when you're spending money on something marketing that you really shouldn't be putting your money there? Is there a way to tell that?
What was the guy's name? He said, he's like, I know that 50% of my advertising works. Trouble is, I don't know what 50%. Do you remember the guy who said that, Evan?
Wasn't it
I
like the
know.
CEO of Johnson and Johnson or something like
Yeah,
that?
something like that. It was somebody that was like, yeah, I know that 50% of my advertising works. Trouble is, I don't know what 50%.
So then we're stuck back in the quandary of where do we spend our money?
Mm-hmm.
Because we want it to count, we want it to work, and we don't want to be chasing things.
Correct. But then that goes back to budget,
Right.
Yep.
right? Which ones are gonna
John Wanamaker. There you go.
from Johnson and Johnson?
Yeah.
Okay, John Wanamaker from Johnson and Johnson. Say that 10 times fast. But then that goes back to knowing, okay, you do your budget, and let's just say you're $1 million per year business. You can do the math from here on out, right? I'm going to spend 10% of my money back into advertising, 10% of my forecasted budget into advertising. Well, now you got $100,000. Okay, well, what months are you going to spend what where?
Right.
Also know that some things take time.
I was just going to say, how
Sorry,
much lead time
right?
do we need on some of these things?
Yeah, sorry, Google picked up because I said the word Google and it says
Oh.
showing pictures that match. I'm like, what the heck? But right now it takes time. So you look at radio. Okay, well, 9 to 12 months before you even start to see any sort of long-term branding impressions. Well, most people give up after 3 because they don't see a result.
Mhm.
Okay, TV, same thing. I mean, Evan and I used to do print magazines in like hyper local targeted communities. Well, those results also took time to be able to start to get to those deep seated things. I mean, I was gonna say shit, but I don't know if I can swear on your show or not. So, but I just did. So there we go. But like you look at SEO, also takes time to ramp that up, right? Google Ads even less time, and so those are one of the things that you can get a little bit quicker on to be able to see that. And so some of your online stuff, you can certainly see, okay, is it working or is it not? But then that goes also back if your marketing sends you 100 calls, but you only answer 30 of them, well, you just lost out on the other 70. But
And
if marketing sends you 100 calls and you answer 80 of them,
Mhm.
well, you've just doubled the amount of at bats that you have with the same spend.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's important for home service companies to understand is that there's only 3% of the market right now that's actually actively shopping for your service. Right? So those people are buying on Google.
Okay.
Right? My air conditioner is broken. I need it fixed now. Where can I find someone who can come and fix it? My toilet is overflowing. I need it fixed now. Where can I find someone that can come and fix it? That's 3% of the market. Okay. Another 30%, or sorry, 6 to 7% are open to the idea. They know that their air conditioner is kind of old. They know that their hot water tank is kind of old, and they should probably do something about it before it ends up breaking. And now it's, 100 degrees outside and my house is cooking and I can't sleep at night and I should probably do something about it. So they're open to the idea, but they're not actively searching it out. So 90% of the market is not actively searching out your product and service right now.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why Google Ads is so expensive, because it's the 3% that are actively searching for your service right now. They know that it's the bottom of the funnel and they are going to charge you a premium for it. Is it important to be there as a company? I think so. But it also comes down to, again, on an operational level, are you answering the phone? Are you getting them onto your calendar? What's your cancellation rate for the jobs that you do book? And is that at an appropriate level? And then what's your average ticket on the jobs that you run? Because if you're not selling enough on the jobs that you're running, then you're not making any money on those calls. Right. And so we've had companies before on the HVAC side where we've said, look, we need to stop running repair ads because we're paying too much for these ads compared to what your average ticket is. And it just doesn't make sense. I know you don't want to sell these people new equipment that don't need new equipment. And I'm all for that as well. I'm never going to tell a technician to go out and sell. I was a comfort advisor at one point. I love turnover leads, but I never sold to someone who I felt like I had to lie to them in order to get them to buy. I couldn't do that. That goes against every part of integrity that I have. But when it comes to presenting options, it's incredibly important. Letting them know that there's a better option out there for them. You know, a big problem that we see right now with some of our clients down in the South, especially Louisiana, is equipment that was improperly sized. So yeah, it was installed a year ago, but you've got mold growing in your house because it's not running frequent enough to pull out the humidity from your home. That's a big issue, and it needs to be discussed, and it needs to be the right solutions need to be presented to that customer so that they can feel comfortable and safe in their home again. And it's not just a UV light. So yeah, like when it comes to ROI on marketing, this is why it's not just as easy and cut and dry and black and white as, well, you spent $1,000 on Google ads and we brought you $5,000 in sales.
There's a lot more to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And business units is a big part of it. Like that's one of the things that's not talked about enough is what is your averages per business unit in your business?
What are some of the averages that they should be getting?
Should be. I mean, an average ticket on a repair call should be north of probably 350, I would say.
Mhm.
But you need to be presenting 3 to 6 opportunities on those calls. Because yeah, just because there's a capacitor that's out doesn't mean that's the only issue in the equipment. And we need to be educating the customer on what else there is there. Present them with the opportunities, give them a chance to choose. Out of every 10 calls that we run in the summer, 2 to 4 of them should be turned over into an opportunity for a sales call. Doesn't mean we're selling it. Doesn't mean that we're pushing it, but it's the opportunity created saying, hey, this piece of equipment is 12 years old. The repair today, it's going to cost $2,500. It might make sense to look at an opportunity to replace this piece of equipment. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. On my head is thinking, how do you get your technicians, because they're the ones who's going out on that repair call, to be thinking ahead as to be able to, when is it time to present the offer? When is it time to just fix it and leave? Because most of them probably want to just fix it and go.
Of course. And there's a variety of reasons as to why that is. Maybe maybe they're overbooked. Are you sending your technicians on 7 calls a day? Of course, they're not presenting all the options.
Right.
Right. So that's an issue. Is there enough training that's happening in your office where you're educating your techs on what it is that we need to be doing? How is it that we're communicating things to the customer? Because nothing makes a customer more frustrated than a technician coming out, fixing their equipment, and then the next day it breaks again because something else in the equipment failed.
That makes you look terrible.
Yeah. Makes you look like you're incompetent, that you didn't know what you were doing. All you did was fix the symptom. You didn't fix the cause of the symptom. And you didn't run your full diagnosis. And again, was it the tech's fault or were they not trained properly?
So this whole marketing question is like something with tentacles going out. And if you
Tons.
haven't, I mean, you got to look at all the outlying pieces before you really are looking at what you're spending on marketing, it sounds like.
100%. And especially when it comes to things like Google Ads, because that is something that we run for clients and we obsess over the numbers. But if we can provide a better result for the client, for our customers, our home service business owners, by saying, hey, you're averaging $2,500 on maintenance calls. Why? Like, why is that average ticket so much higher than your repair calls? Now we can dive in with them and uncover what it is that they're doing there and say, oh, this is the reason why. Your top maintenance tech has a kid with asthma. And so they're constantly talking about having better air quality in the home. Interesting. Maybe that's something we should talk about on repair calls too, right? It's little things like that where, I mean, part of the problem is that most business owners, they don't learn this stuff. They're not taught it because they went to technical school so they could be a technician.
And most of the time they come up through the ranks as a technician.
Correct.
before they go out on their own.
Mhm.
Correct. Yeah, having a partner that can look into these numbers and start to pull back the story. And I know that this is the same thing for financials. When you look at a financial statement, they're just numbers on a page.
Mhm.
But when certain numbers connect, it tells a story as to what might be happening in this business. Well, it's the exact same thing on the marketing side. All the data that we look at tells a story. And now we can peel back the layers of that to say, hey, we need to double down on this because we're extremely profitable here. Or, hey, we should probably pull back on this because we're actually losing money on this side.
And when you can show them those kind of numbers, it allows them to make better decisions on where they should be placing their team, where they should be
I mean,
putting their money in what
absolutely.
areas.
Absolutely.
So I
You know,
know
do we
from
need more
my,
sales opportunities from
Mhm.
marketed leads, or do we need more service calls because we have a team of selling techs? Like something as simple as that.
I know from my side, once they understand how financial statements work and they can read them somewhat, light bulbs start going off. And they start realizing that when they spend money here, they get this back into the business. But if they just drop money up here, then they're not. And they're able to start increasing their profits. They're starting to watch their cost of goods sold number, and they start becoming more profitable just because they're watching their numbers. But it goes way deeper because what you guys are doing are affecting those numbers as well.
100%.
Correct.
So it sounds like they need a team of professionals in their back pocket, allowing them to get the snippets of information that they probably haven't learned along the way yet, so they can be the most profitable.
Correct. And it's not knowing how to do it, but it's knowing and understanding the numbers. And to use, since we're on financial statements, I hold that seat in our business. I don't know how to use QuickBooks to be able to compute my general ledger and my profit and loss and my balance sheet, but I know how to go in and read them and understand them to be able to tell what the story is, right? It's the same thing for somebody listening to this. It's like, okay, well, you don't need to know how to do your own books. You don't need to know how to build your own website. You don't need to know how to run your own Google Ads. You don't need to know how to do your SEO, but you need to understand, at least at a high level, what the numbers and the data is telling you, at least at a high level. And so if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I don't know what my marketing ones even are, well, there's a place to start. Well, ask the questions. As my grade 9 teacher once told me, there are no such things as stupid questions, just stupid people who don't ask questions.
Right. And I think sometimes they're hesitant to ask questions because they might not come across as a being this very successful business owner, whatever type of scenario that they're trying to play. In reality,
Right.
just ask the question and let's get some help.
Mm-hmm.
The ego gets in the way.
It
Mhm.
does.
Yep.
Mhm.
As old Uncle Joe Crisera says, your ego is not your amigo.
So Thad, let me ask you then, bud. What numbers should contractors know from a super high level and without getting into the weeds that they can ask a marketing company?
Well, what are we talking about here? Are we talking websites, SEO, Google Ads?
Great place
All
to
of the
start.
above?
So, number one, do you have phone numbers set up for each individual service lines that you can track the calls that are coming into your business?
Right. And
Like that's a
so
great point right there.
yeah, and that's why, because I'm thinking like, well, of those three, I'm like, well, I can split off numbers, but which ones actually make the most sense, right? And so understanding the different numbers are going to mean different things for different parts. If you lump all your website traffic into one thing, like, hey, we've got 100 searches this month, and numbers, I'm just gonna use random numbers, right? But you don't actually know where they actually came from. Well, any marketing company can paint a good story with 100 numbers if they don't actually show you the rest of the data. So if you have 100 people going to your website, okay, well, what's the breakdown from where those people are coming from? Whether it's organic or direct. In organic is they're searching out AC repair or drain cleaning or whatever, right? Insert home service business repair item here. And so they're coming into your site from organic. Direct is they're typing in your URL. They saw your van. They saw that it's a branded type search. from that, I would look at, okay, well, how many people are actually making their way through to taking action on my website? Well, are we getting a decent number of coming through from like a Google component of a website itself? If I'm looking at SEO, I'm going to be looking at where are my trends going in terms of my keywords, and I know that they're leading indicators. So if I know that the marketing company is getting me further and further up on page one, further and further green circles inside of my heat map, and if you don't know what a heat map is, it's if you have your Google business profile, your marketing company should show you or be able to show you, hey, what does my heat map look like for my Google business profile for your main keyword, your main product? So like AC repair, furnace repair, drain cleaning, plumber near me, sort of a thing. And to know, okay, are they progressing and getting higher? But then also, what's my call volume coming in from that? Because again, those are leading indicators. I don't care if somebody's ranked on page 3 of Google. Guess what? You're never going to get calls from page 3 of Google. But are we getting closer and closer to number one? Are we getting into further territory? And so that's a leading indicator to know if the work is going good. On a Google ad side of things, if you're looking at some of the numbers there, I'd want to know, well, what's my click-through rate and what's my conversion rate? But then also, what are you measuring for your conversions? So your click-through rate's going to tell the efficiency of an ad itself and whether they're doing the right thing by trying to get a better click-through rate on targeting into that. Different ad sets are going to have different click-through rates. It's just understanding that number. But your conversion rate is probably going to be your biggest indicator for a Google ad, because now you know that if I'm spending $100 and I've got 2 conversions, well, I know that it's $50 per conversion, knowing that not every conversion books. But understanding what a conversion is, like, okay, well, what are you tracking? Are you tracking that every time somebody clicks on my phone number and a website and you're marking that as a conversion? Well, like on the phone, right? On mobile, right? The click to call. Well, not everybody makes the call from there. So is it based on length of time of somebody calling in? Now you have a little bit more data to say, okay, well, their conversions are happening. The data is there. The conversion rates are there. I'm starting to get calls on the board. Hey, that's making sense. That is some of the high level things that, I mean, if I were an HVAC business owner, what I would look at, because I don't know and get into the weeds of our SEO or our Google ads, to be able to know. I wouldn't even, and this sounds kind of weird coming from a marketing company, but that's not my seat. It's not my role. Evan would know how. I don't know how to set up a Google ads. Wouldn't even know how. Right. So, but I can look at it and I can see some of this higher level data to understand some of it, to be able to know if it's working or if it's not.
Sounds like
So,
there's lots and lots to learn in this area.
then that was just a few things. I mean, that was me going off the top of my head from Evan putting me on the spot. So Evan, let me reverse this back to you then. What did I miss and what would you change?
The number one thing that I would want to know is, what is my cost per acquired customer? CAC, right? So all you do is you take the amount that you spent, divided by how many customers you got. Ta-da. There you go. You've got your cost per acquired customer. And then I would want to know, what is my lifetime value of a customer?
That's a
Right?
huge one
Because
to know.
and it's something that's overlooked, because again, coming back to a $300 average ticket on a repair call. Well, if we're trying to acquire customers via Google Ads, and in our market, the cost per click might be $75 for an AC repair call. Great lead. It's top of the funnel. They need our services now, but it's expensive as hell. And if from that one click, we've got only a 10% conversion rate, well, we need 10 clicks in order to get one call. $700 to get one call, and an average ticket is only $300. Well, now we're not looking so good. If we've got a 50% conversion rate on that click, well, now we're looking a little bit better, right? So knowing our conversion rates matters there. But again, coming back to, what is our cost to acquire a customer? What is our average ticket? And then what's our lifetime value? Just because we bring that lead in at maybe a lost cost on day one, that's not the goal. But if we know that the lifetime value of this customer, did you know the average lifetime value of a customer in HVAC is $47,000? That's the
Actually, I did
average,
know that.
right?
I
And
did know
so
that. Yes.
we bring them into our ecosystem, and then we are able to remarket to them with email, text messages, phone calls for maintenances, do that biannually, right? How often are we communicating to the customer? Are we providing a 5-star service so that they're going to refer us to friends and family so we can get more leads in through that? right? All of those things add up to increase the value of that customer. Well, here's another overlooked thing that most people don't utilize, but one of our sponsors for our podcast is Chirp. Big believer in their platform. If you get a customer to raise their hand out of those 9 customers that you didn't book onto your calendar, but they raised their hand, and then you're able to remarket to them through text messages and emails and Facebook ads and things like that. Well, now what is the conversion rate off of those leads? You've already paid for them once. Why not remarket to them in other ways?
You
Right?
bet.
If someone calls into the business, says, hey, I need a technician today because my AC is out, and you say, well, we're booking 3 days out or 5 days out or 2 weeks out, chances are they're going to call someone else. Are we texting them in the fall or in the spring to get them back onto our calendar and say, hey, you reached out to us this summer for an AC repair. We just wanted to follow up and get you scheduled in for a tune-up. You don't have to tell them that you didn't go see them.
Because chances are they won't remember who they ended
They
up
won't
calling.
remember.
Because
Exactly.
that company's not going to follow up with them. They're not going to spend time on them, because from what I see, so oftentimes they forget to market back to their own customer list,
Always.
and
Yeah.
they forget to build those relationships.
Mhm.
And so it's pretty easy for you to make that call, and they have no idea that you weren't the one that came out, unless they did it badly.
Correct.
Mhm.
Which, I mean, let's face it, if the company's not willing to follow up in the fall and in the spring a couple times a year, chances are they're not delivering a 5-star service either.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I had a
So
company come, oh, I had a company
was
come
gonna
to me
say.
a couple months ago who was struggling, hanging on by their fingertips, an HVAC company. And one of the first questions out of my mouth was, have you picked up the phone and started calling your customer list for tune-ups? And he looked at me, we were on Zoom. He looked up at me with this look on his face. It's like, why didn't I think of that? It's like, come on, dude, you've got a customer list out there, work it. You should have been able to fill up every time slot he had by just picking up the phone and making
Right.
calls.
But that's the thing, is a lot of times marketing companies get the blame for lack of leads. Well, you're sitting on your own leads gold mine.
Yeah.
Go to work on it.
Yeah. Work on them. Follow
But
up with them.
at the same time, like, you don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's where the best practice groups, that's where the even the Facebook groups that are totally free, or listening to podcasts, that's totally free. Like, the resources are there. It's not a lack of resources as to why you're not taking advantage of it. It's a lack of resourcefulness, right? So being able to put yourself in scenarios where you can gather that information and say, oh crap, I should be calling my contact list. I should be putting together some sort of a text message campaign so I don't have to call 10,000 people. I only have to call 4,000 people because the other 6,000 responded to the text message, right? There's so many different things that contractors can do, and that's where it's really hard because there's so many hats you're wearing.
It is. Yes. They are running around putting out fires constantly.
Absolutely. And that's where we're doing something like we just did yesterday in our company, taking the time to pause the busy work and think through how it is that we do things. Are there areas of opportunity where we can become more efficient and we can provide an even better service for our customers in less time?
That sounds like some primes, what we call CEO time.
Mhm.
You're able to step back, put on a different hat, and have some conversation and some thought, and tease out those lines a little bit.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think that's so important, and most businesses don't do it because they're too busy.
correct.
They're just running from point A to point B constantly.
Well, and this was our entire team did what we
Wow.
call a shutdown day, where we just paused everything, all the client work, like the business. Don't worry if your client listens to this, your work is still getting done. But we had to do it to be able to realign our processes inside of our business to making sure we're being the most efficient with our time. And as a result of the shutdown day, every department that was on their own, and then there were some cross departments that happened in there, and got together and discussed it. Like, oh, wow, this is actually a way better way of doing it. Now we're actually going to save time where we can actually do more with what we're doing and be more efficient in doing it and have a better streamlined process and on and on and on and on. It was a worry of ours that we're not going to get the buy-in. It might not be very good. People are going to be mad because they're behind on their tasks. Well, the overwhelming success of it was spawned off. We're like, oh, we're going to do this more. And they want to do it more.
Good. And they felt heard.
Mm-hmm.
They felt valued.
Mm-hmm.
What a concept for your
Mm-hmm.
team to feel heard and valued and important, and that their feedback mattered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think oftentimes our employees don't feel that way.
Well, and here's a hidden ROI. Your culture is going to be the biggest determining factor, is if your business is going to have a better ticket or not, or you're going to take better care of the customer or not, or you're going to have greater longevity of your employees or you're not, or your marketing is going to be better or you're not, right? You think about the problem situation that Evan talked about earlier. Somebody's calling, their toilets clogged, their AC's down, their furnace is out, whatever, their lights aren't turning on, and they call your business. And if you answer the phone, Bob's Plumbing, well, they're gonna be like, sorry, like, hey, thank you for calling Bob's Plumbing. How's it going today? Whatever it is, I'm not a front end person, right? But like, you see the difference, right? I was trying to think of the way to how I used to answer it when I worked at State Farm, and a little antenna thing come up when I was on the front. I didn't last very long on that job. A little bit too rough around the edges. I don't know how I'm in HR right now, but that idea of how you answer the phone. Right? Are you, I always think about Julian Heaton Air, like, hey, how can we make you smile today? That's the last thing that comes out of their mouth. How can we make you smile today? And now what's their first experience when they call you? Because your team is bought into your overall mission, and that's going to also enhance your ROI too.
I know here in my own office, we have these little decals next to our phone that says smile.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you'll smile before you pick up that phone, they can hear it in your voice. And it's funny how that happens.
The smile when you dial analogy for making cold calls.
But then the next thing that a lot of companies screw up on, and a lot of companies are guilty of this. So can I ask how you heard of us today?
Oh, right at the very beginning.
Right? Like, the last thing that's on that customer's mind is, yeah, I give a shit about your marketing dollars right now. My toilet is overflowing. There's crap everywhere in my house. You need to get here now, right? My air conditioner is out. I just got no sleep. Get here now. I don't care about your marketing dollars.
Right.
And that's where having phone tracking set up, right? Using a service like CallRail or DialPad or What Converts, anything like that, you're able to put proper tracking in place. So now you don't need to ask that question, because you set up a different phone number on your van and your billboard and everywhere else. And well, most people aren't going to call those numbers. For the 5 that did, you're going to feel good about it.
It's funny because you say that. I had back in the magazine business, I had a chiropractor in the downtown area, and he served a pretty close knit group. And he was saying, "Well, I don't know where my marketing is coming from." Okay, well, let's sit down. And he had the form that everybody filled in the list of how'd you hear about us. So I'm like, well, let's go through all the answers. You track it, right? It's like, yep. So we went through and we plugged them all in, and we looked. He's like, huh, that's interesting. I'm like, what? He's like, well, I had 10 people say that they heard me on the radio. He's like, I've never ran a radio ad in the history of my practice. So I don't know where they got me on radio from. Because they sometimes they panic and they just say whatever comes to mind. Well, now it's like Google, right? Because everybody found you on Google. So it's kind of one of those misnomer questions. Anyways, it's a false flag when you ask that. Yep.
But also a great reminder too of, if you hear a competitor's radio ad playing in your market, don't be envious, don't be jealous, don't be sour, especially if it's a bad ad. Like, be grateful because they're spending their dollars to raise awareness about your industry and your service as well. Because now when people go to Google and type in heating and cooling near me, air conditioning near me, plumber near me, it's because someone else triggered it or some other event triggered it. So, yeah, don't feel bad about it. It's fine. People will click radio for you too, and you never ran a radio ad.
That's pretty funny. I know that when I've asked it a few times in the course of my own business, the answer is internet.
Yep.
Just
9
internet.
times out of 10. Yep.
Internet. Like, okay.
Google gets all the credit, which I mean, we're grateful for. We appreciate it. It helps us look good. But yeah, Google gets a ton of the credit because it's the last thing that people do. And that's where, I joke about the phone numbers on the vans. Most people aren't going to type in the phone number that's on your van when you're driving by them or they're sitting in traffic. They're going to type in your business name. They won't even type in the URL of your business name. They will just type in your full name, and then they'll go to your Google business profile and they'll click call or they'll click website.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So we
Wow.
love it because it gives us credit.
You'll take it wherever you can get it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what other tidbits do you have for these listeners before I pop my big crescendo type question for you?
Oh, we got the final reveal question. Look, just take the holistic approach to it, right? And understanding everything at a higher level. When you take that, when you get serious about owning the reports that come your way and understanding what those reports are saying, regardless if it's us or any other report that comes your way. Now you're going to be able to make an informed decision based off of the data and understanding what it means, and not making a snap decision based off of incomplete data or misunderstood data. And also build a good culture. We already talked about that, though.
Culture's huge. Yes.
Yes, massive, massive, massive.
Yeah.
Yes, and perhaps read anything by Mike Michalowicz, because I say I'm on the back,
There you go.
and
This
yeah,
way.
big fan, big fan. I also a big fan of some of his work that he does too. So
Yeah, he's got some amazing books out there and has certainly contributed heavily to the small businesses across the country, not just in the US, but we'll take credit here in the US
yeah,
for what he's done since that's where I'm at.
right.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Evan.
Well, I was just going to say my last piece of information is stop looking at marketing as an expense. It's an
Yeah,
investment in your business,
it is.
and it needs to be treated as such. With any investment, you need to nurture it. And so constantly look at the data, look it over, study it, and ask questions. So many questions. Try and understand it.
Very good. Very good advice from both of you. Thank you so much. So, my big question for you is this podcast is all about finding profit leaks. How do we find them? How do we plug them? How do we start adding money to the bottom line? Now, we've touched lightly on some things throughout today's episode that where we can plug potential profit leaks. So my question for you is, what is a hidden or not too common profit leak that you guys see when you're working with home service businesses or even HVAC in particular?
Oh, well, the biggest one for me is just not answering your phone. We already dove into that, right? You think about it, if you're only answering 40% of your calls and you can get that up to 80, you've just doubled your at-bats and you've just doubled your revenue, and you've likely just doubled your revenue. Now, from a non-advertising perspective, is efficiency inside your business. The average HVAC business, service business is probably operating around 35-36% efficiency. If you can double that, well, now you've just bought back your bottom line without changing anything on your top line. Evan had a good example of that when he was touring the Any Hour facility. Evan, I'm not going to take that story. I mean, you did a pretty good job of explaining that to me, but just how they run 340 trucks on the road and how they do their parts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So essentially, if a technician needs a obscure part that they don't have in their vehicle, well, they've got parts runners that will bring those parts out to them, right? So that being a big thing. They also have their tooth fairy program. So essentially, you've got your jobs that you run and you've got your parts that you use, and every single part has an item number in your inventory, and you're checking them off as you use them in Service Titan or whatever inventory list and software that you're using. Well, as you're checking them off, that order gets placed, the equipment gets replaced, gets put into a bin, and at night they've got parts runners that bring, or tooth fairies, or night ops, as the team actually prefers to be called. But they bring those parts out to the trucks, so the technicians are at home with their family, sleep for the night, and these night ops are coming out. They're dropping off the parts to their vehicle, so now they can run one extra call a day instead of having to go to the distribution house, supply house to go and get more parts. They're doing that instead. And so it's little areas of opportunity. Now, this is a 340 truck operation, $100 million company. They're able to do things that most companies aren't able to do. We get that. But what it started with, and this would be my answer to your question, Diane, is ask better questions. If you want a better answer, ask better questions. How can we be 1% better at this specific area of the business? Well, what if this wouldn't be an issue anymore? Right? When you look at what Netflix became out of Blockbuster, what were the limitations behind Blockbuster? Well, you had to drive to the store to rent the movie. You can only rent 3 movies at a time. And by the way, this isn't my idea. This was stolen from Duncan Wardle, who we went and saw at EGIA at Epic. If we are late on returning the film, we got to pay more money for it. We got to rewind it every single time we want to watch it. Netflix said, well, what if we didn't have to do those things? What if we could provide them with a movie that they could watch as many times as they wanted? What if they didn't have to drive to be able to watch it? What if they could just watch it at home and have it at home? And it started with shipping movies out to people. And then it became the downloadable service that it is today. But it's asking better questions. You're going to find better answers, taking that time to pause, reflect, and think through what it is that could be possible. Most times, we have the answers. If all we needed was more information, anyone with an internet connection would be running a $100 million company right now.
Mhm.
It's the application of knowledge and taking the time to pause and reflect and ask ourselves, what if? What if this wasn't an issue? What would that possibly look like? That's what's going to fill those profit gaps and those holes in the business.
And I'm going to back up to something Evan just said a minute ago about 1% increases.
Mhm.
Can we make something 1% better? So oftentimes we're looking for those grand slam home run type things. But in reality, if we can address 2 or 3 different areas with a 1% improvement, the momentum that creates starts making a huge difference on your bottom line profits. Starts
Correct.
making a huge difference in your company culture, a huge difference in your efficiency, huge difference in how you understand your numbers, your marketing, all those types of things. But we've got to be willing to say, where can I make a 1% or a 2% improvement? And that goes back to your asking better questions.
Correct. And also you get what you tolerate.
You bet.
Right. So if you tolerate low profitability in your company and you just say, yeah, that's okay, and dust under the rug, we'll make it up next month, you're probably going to get it again. Right. If you want more results out of yourself, out of your technicians, you need to raise your standards. Raise what it is that you expect of yourself. And it starts with you as an owner. You can't ask more of your people without first asking more of yourself.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm saying this because I'm looking straight at myself in the top corner here and speaking to me, no one else. So this isn't of any benefit to you. You should just ignore it. But
and the members of my coaching group were constantly talking about being proud to be profitable.
Mm-hmm.
That is something we should be proud of, that we're running a profitable business, which then allows us to employ these people, give jobs, serve our country as a whole, but our local areas or whatever. We can't do that if we're not profitable.
Correct.
So we need to be proud to be profitable. We need to pick up that mantra, proud to be profitable, and display it wherever we can. Proud to be profitable.
We're business owners. We're not accidental nonprofits.
We shouldn't be accidental nonprofits.
Yeah. Well, and charging what it costs to do a great job is in the customer's best interest. And that's a Tommy Mello quote from his first book. So I can't take credit for it. Although I say it so much, I probably will eventually.
You should just do it as a quote, and you could have Tommy Mello and put a line through it, and then put Evan Hoffman underneath it and send it to him.
Tommy won't care, will he?
Right. Yeah, hey, you probably think it's funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
You would.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Evan and Thaddeus. Thank you so much for joining me today on this episode. I know we've delivered some great value to home service businesses, and I'm hoping that they're listening and they were taking notes. If not, they'll be down in the show notes where they can pick up some of these golden nuggets that we talked about today. And guys, where can people go to find out more about On Purpose Media?
You can hit us up on the web. onpurposemedia.ca is the easiest way to do it. We are also both active on Facebook, so you can search. When you actually search my name, Thaddeus Tandu, I show up. Evan Hoffman, there's a bunch of them, so don't search that. Search Thaddeus Tandu, you'll find it. And I believe Evan right now is pulling up a phone number that he's going to be able to drop because we didn't get it prepared in time, and I'm buying him enough time to be able to get it. You can also find us on Instagram. We have that on there with it. And then we also have a podcast too, HVAC Success Secrets Revealed, or HVAC Revealed for short.
Yep. And if you're looking
Alright.
for a second opinion on your marketing, you want some feedback, not necessarily a sales pitch, but just some real feedback in how it is that you're showing up, shoot us a quick text, 719-824-1377.
Say that number again, if you would, Evan, in case they missed it.
And in case you missed it, that's 719-824-1377.
All right. Thank you so much again, both of you. I'm just honored to have you guys on my program. And I just wish you multiple successes as you're out there doing your part to help these home service businesses become profitable and stay profitable. Oh, there he is. He's back again. I thought we lost Evan for a second there.
We could hear him, so.
Yeah. Anyhow, everybody stay profitable. I'll catch y'all on our next episode. Thank you again.